Welcome back, Psychonauts.
Straight to the point in this one. Have you ever noticed when you're taking psychedelics in a group and you all take the same dose, let's say 150 micrograms of LSD, all the same purity, same batch, same dose, and then one of the people goes absolutely skits hard rail, mate, and maybe another person has some transcendental vision, mystical experience, tapping into the beyond, leaving the physical. Another person has absolutely no effect whatsoever. And then there's times when you take psychedelics in a group and every single person sort of has a shared experience. Why does this happen? So this is not going to be a scientific video. This is just sort of my hypothesis on why this is the case for many group psychedelic settings, and why individual people who talk online argue a lot, where they say, oh well, it wasn't that dose, or you faked this story. I know I know that for a fact, that people argue in this manner, because I see it all the time in the comment section. And for anyone who's never listened to one of my commentary videos, this will be quite fascinating for you, because maybe there's a bit of misunderstanding within the sort of up-and-coming psychotic community, maybe the younger sort of people who don't really know that much about it, which is awesome. There's nothing wrong with not knowing anything. It just means there's room to know more. And I'm not saying I know everything at all, but I've had a lot of experience, and I also find it interesting to study these things via my own sort of direct experience and through others. And I've noticed that there's psychedelics dose the experience can be dose dependent. There can be an average guideline on, say, the dosage effects of many psychedelics. I've done videos before discussing the different doses of LSD and explained, salvia explained, etc. But these are literally just a rough average for the average person. But we must take into account that everybody has a very unique genetic makeup. Why do they have to make these noises when I'm in doing the shed talks? Actually, you come in here and no one makes noises outside until I come in. It's crazy. Don't even know if you heard that, but if you did, sorry. So for me, psychedelics affect me so ridiculously intensely, whereas other people, I've been in situations where, say, we've been taking mushrooms and I literally have 0.5 grams of psilocybin from a shroom chocolate bar, or just say cubensis mushrooms, and I will literally, I don't have any visuals. I tell you what, one thing about me is I don't get visuals anymore, really. No matter what dose of psychedelic I have, I don't seem to have visuals. It's really strange. It's like the visual component of my trips has dissipated, and it's all mental, it's all metaphysically inclined. I'm analysing consciousness, reality, the very room I'm in. I start to see it as a literal miracle. And with other people, they take the same dose, 0.5 Gs, they don't feel anything. It's basically subperceptual, and they just seem to have some elated state of being, some sense of euphoria, of clarity, even like a little bit of emotional catharsis. Other people take 0.5 grams, absolutely feel nothing. And I've been in these situations, and I bet many of you have as well. But what's going on? What's going on, lads? What's the actual reason behind this? This is no scientific explanation, but tell you what I do believe is true. Many of us have different levels of ego density. Many of us have either open consciousness or restricted consciousness. Not saying not saying open or restricted is better than one another. It's just the case. Some people have closed off minds, some people don't. Some people are some people are radically open, some people are in between. It's not a competition, but this is the state of the matter. Some people just are a bit more some people are just less stuck in the box. Some people think outside the box in terms of many areas, and you take psychedelics a lot and do all the meditation practices and personal development work, the spiritual path, etc. And this is going to open your mind and sort of unlock more gateways for the psychedelic to dive in through, and basically, yeah, unlock parts of your mind, your consciousness, your brain, whatever you want to call it, that most people, most normies, I guess, aren't going to be able to access. Not saying a normie, whatever a normie is, can't take a psychedelic and have a literal experience of God realization and the universe as one being, and all of us being some sort of like fractalized entity, fractalized fragment or aspect of whatever God and consciousness and source is, whatever you want to call it. Whether that's true, I don't even know. This is just me talking from my own little perspective. But there's also other factors as well. There's a very real biological element to it. Some people are just born more privy, more prone to spirituality. Some people are just born to be yogis. Some people, some people are born to think they're a human their whole life. Just, I guess, the average person, average British man, like, hey, I was born a human and I'll be a human forever, like. In fact, he doesn't even believe in forever, he believes in death. He'll be like, yeah, it's just all that human stuff in it, like. I did a northern accent because that's where I'm from. Not saying every average British man is like that, but he could take a psychedelic. Maybe let's say this average man, he takes a psychedelic when he's a teenager, or sees some funny colours, that was about it, and I had a bit of a laugh. Somebody else, like myself, takes it, who's always been a bit alternatively minded in terms of personality, my perception, my whole vibe. I take a psychedelic and I tap into the analytical element of it. What really struck me about psychedelics when I first took them was just how differently I seemed to react to them versus the people I was with. I guess for the other people I was with people, right, who've taken psychedelics. Many of my friends that I'm still mates with, they've taken psychedelics and they just don't go down the spiritual path regardless of how much they take. I've seen people take a lot of acid in one and not really go anywhere with it in terms of sort of the spirituality angle, the metaphysical stuff, going into the cosmic sort of side of things. Whereas me, it made me feel slightly alienated, because I'd be with them and I'd take a really low dose, or even just a high dose that they took, and I'd be like, whoa, I need to go and lay down and seriously reflect on my life and existence as a whole. Whereas they're just having a good time, just sort of partying. And while I have partied on psychedelics, that's how I got into them. That's how I got into all substances, just partying, raving, session, whatever you want to call it. And I quickly noticed that the more I took it, the more I was piercing the veil, and I was starting to tap into something beyond myself, especially since I was an atheist for a very long time and rather scientifically, materially minded. The more I kept taking them, the more I realised that, oh, I'm going to have to shed this paradigm of thought. And as I kept taking them, and I kept clinging to my paradigm, it resulted in my very first ego death or transcendent experience, where my whole idea of reality and the mind and myself and everything completely shattered, and I had a glimpse of the truth, whatever the truth is. I still have no idea, but I got a glimpse of something that felt viscerally real and more truthful than my limited finite experience, and so it's what led me on the path. But many of my friends who've dived deep with psychedelics sort of haven't tapped into this stuff that I have, and it made me feel very alienated and made me think that I went crazy. And in a sense I did go crazy, because that's that great Joseph Campbell quote, the mystic swims in the same waters that the psychotic drowns in. Awesome quote. It's been with me my whole life, and I've really related to it, where in a sense my ego death, ego dissolution experiences, whatever they were, my breakthroughs on many psychedelics, there was an element of insanity to them, and I just had nobody to talk about it, especially since during the experience there was like a complete lack of sense of self or a sense of other. It was just like nothingness, but also everythingness at the same time. It's so paradoxical and loopy. But you'll notice that some people just don't get this, and some people on a level, you notice this out in the street, going to the shop. I live in the UK, go to just the shop, just see the average person there, older people, 50, 60-year-olds, or even young people. Everyone's got a varying level of ego density and a restriction or expansive state of consciousness. And if I gave psychedelics to some, I don't know, maybe some like 60-year-old man who's very sort of like narcissistic, very closed in, the mind is a very self-deceptive beast, and it can deny what's in front of it. But then what's interesting about psychedelics is you could get an equally, not an equally, but on the same sort of tier. This is all very symbolic. Don't get attached to what I'm saying, but it's just, it's figurative language. So could take a similar sort of guy in the same sort of tier of low consciousness, high ego sort of state, but maybe he's got a bit more consciousness. Even though he's got a dense ego, he's more open to other things that maybe the other guy isn't. You give him a psychedelic, and maybe he has like a little glimpse of infinity, of beauty, of godliness, of oneness, unity, interconnectivity, but he doesn't know what it means. So then he thinks he goes crazy, swears off psychedelics for life. His mate who took psychedelics, who's dense ego and low consciousness, agrees, yeah, you're crazy, it's all bollocks, I just saw funny colours, that's how it is for everybody. But then as you open your mind and you become more conscious and understanding of the relativity of each ego, of each like fractalized version of consciousness, you realize that we're all made up very, very differently, even though we are the same thing. And this is sort of the paradox of separation and finitude, is that 150 micrograms for the average person, I can make a little guideline for what it might be like, or at this level you'll experience this, and at later levels you experience literal like dissolution of the self. It's not always the same, and you can see this in the trip reports that I share, where look, I don't know, type in a 500 microgram 500 microgram trip report of LSD on my channel, and go through all of them and see how different the experience is for each single person. And this is where I think people get confused and start projecting and saying that, oh, it's all fake, man, oh, they completely made it up, it's creative writing, holy fuck. And I get it, I get why people say that, but when you start to open your mind to the fact that everybody is wired up very, very differently within this finite egoic realm, you realize that people do react to this stuff in such a vast amount of different ways that it's really hard to actually nail it down and say this dose will just affect you like this. It's just a very, very, very basic guideline to be like, this is a low dose, it probably won't be as intense as like the intermediate or heavy doses. But that doesn't mean that you can't take 100 micrograms of LSD and literally be tapping into mystical realms and states of being that a sober human can't usually access without meditating for like 50 years. Like, this is what happens to me. Psychedelics are so intense, I will never ever take a heavy dose of a psychedelic ever again. I literally, very, very recently, in the past few months, took 0.5 grams of a mushroom chocolate, and it just absolutely sent me. It was far, far too intense. I just thought I was sort of going to have a sub-perceptual dose, and it was intense and not exactly pleasant. I did learn a lot from it though. Then I'll have like half of a 2CB, and it'll just absolutely fry my brain in a good and bad way. The prevailing message of psychedelics for me now really is to let them go for this time frame where I'm in my life, in my late 20s, and really just I've got the message, hang up the phone for now. I probably will get back into them later on quite deeply and go back into spirituality, but the main message for psychedelics for me is that, geez, it's not like how it used to be when I was in my early 20s, when I could take loads of psychedelics at festivals, experience insane visuals, extreme levels of euphoria and interconnectivity, and just unfathomable levels of intelligence, like how articulated I was and how clear my thought stream was, whereas now it seems it almost sometimes restricts my consciousness in a way. It's really interesting. Maybe that's some shadow element within me that I need to work out, but I'll tell you one thing, the psychedelics aren't helping me really work through it. I need to work through it in other ways, go back to the personal development, go back to the other stages of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So yeah, bit of a ramble as per usual, but everybody who's used to this sort of content knows that
That's how we roll, I guess.
But yeah, I just thought it was interesting to point out that we are really all engineered in subtly and obviously varied ways, and every single aspect of your being, physically, mentally, spiritually, the variations in all of us determines how psychedelics affect us. So that's why when you're in a group setting and you may all take the same dose, many of you will have different experiences, and maybe you and another person will have almost the exact same experience. That sort of says to me that you're resonating on the same frequency, vibrating on the same level, however you want to call it. I just like using that as figurative language because it makes sense to me. I've seen it myself. I've been to parties with people all on psychedelics, like 20 people on psychs, and I've just noticed that yeah, some people I just seem to gravitate more towards because we seem to be on that same level of conscious development. But it's also fascinating to watch other people react to psychedelics at the same dose and see how differently they react. Yeah, just goes to show you how complex and just deep the rabbit hole goes with psychedelics and how they affect people. And it's something that we need to be very cognizant of as psychedelics become more legal and accepted into society, where we need to really treat them with a lot of nuance, because the experience itself is nuanced. There's so many different angles to it and ways it can go wrong, ways it can go right. It's very, very serious stuff. So yeah, all I can say really at the end of this is, as I say all the time, if you want to avoid a bad trip, if you're scared about how psychedelics might affect you, literally just take the lowest amount possible. Literally the lowest. If you've never done them before, just take literally the lowest amount, and that is going to drastically mitigate the chances of you having a bad experience. So hope this helped some of you out and thought it was a little interesting thought piece. What do you think of this? Why do you think psychedelics affect people differently? Do you even think this is true? Because I know a lot of people don't, because so many people comment and say,
Well, this report is fake. It's just creative writing. It's all B.
So I say B shit then, bullshit. Yeah, definitely gone on for too long now. But I completely get why people are like that, because I mean, I think I was like that back in the day. If somebody told me, oh, I took this amount of acid and this happened to me, I'm like, well, that's a load of bullshit, because I've done that amount and that's not happened to me. And then I got deeper into sort of consciousness work and realised, oh wait, of course that's possible, because everybody's on their own path in many different ways, and people are just genuinely geared up differently, like biologically, different brain chemistry, body types. It all makes so much sense why they affect people differently. Look how much look into how important your weight is. Like how much you build affects how drugs of any kind can interact with you. So yeah, it makes so much sense to me why all of these trip reports I share can be vastly different within the same dose range, and etc, etc. Anyway guys, thank you for listening, and I'll see you on the other side, Mrs. Moneypenny.